You have to protect your people. And when they see that the level of commitment that you're giving to them, they always give it back to you. And also, I have the inversion of trust when it comes to, I don't ask them to earn my trust. I give them trust from the first day on. Your job is to keep the trust I gave you versus you have to work hard to make me to trust you. Well, you have done nothing wrong for me to not trust you to begin with. I just start working with you. So I needed to give you a 10. Your job is to keep the 10. And if you fall to a 9, your job is to get back to the 10. Now I put the responsibility on them to keep it versus them to have to prove it to me, which it inverts the pyramid, and the employee sees you as a partner, not as a boss. And that level of giving and taking is important when you're starting a relationship.
What if aging isn't about slowing down, but leveling up? I'm Dr. Isaac Jones. This is the Longevity Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the Longevity Leaders Podcast. I'm here with my good friend, Greice Murphy, who has done so many amazing things in healthcare. She has grown some unbelievable businesses. One of them called Advanced Care Partners. She sold 2 times, as well as built some amazing systems through BetterStem to really help children with autism get some really powerful solutions. We're going to actually talk about that in this call. Another thing that she did was she's acquired a separate company called Miami Stem Cell, and is helping people all over the world that fly in and see her to really maximize their longevity and transform their clinical outcomes. Greice, thank you so much for being here, and just really, really excited to have you. One last thing I'll share about you to brag on you is that you were the Ernst Young's Entrepreneur of the Year. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how essentially you got into essentially the regenerative medicine space, and why you wanted to acquire and then grow and scale Miami Stem Cell. And then we can, talk a little bit later about, autism and some of the solutions that you're seeing. You sent me a video earlier this week, and it was just like heart. It just exploded my heart with so much love, seeing this child be able to do things he wasn't able to do before and get his life back because of the breakthroughs that we're going to talk about in this call. But why don't we start with the regenerative medicine element of your passion for longevity and regenerative medicine?
Yeah. So after you sell a business and you exit as the CEO, because you can sell and stay as the CEO, right? Which I did for 3 years to ensure that my team was taken care of. But then you exit your baby, basically, that you've been working on for the last 10 years of your life. And then you just wake up and say, what's next? And I promised myself to continue to always do what I love and love what I do. And I would not sacrifice to spend my time in anything that is not very, very close to my heart. And regenerative medicine, it is. And it is the new medicine. It is stem cells and non-drugs or non-medication type of approach. So I had an opportunity to acquire Miami Stem Cell, which was at that point, we had been in business for about 13 years here in Florida, and I was about to move to Florida. So it was a really good opportunity. But most importantly, that experience to acquire Miami Stem Cell and also grow and operate that company opened my eyes to understand the potential of stem cell treatments. And it was not until I interviewed a saleswoman that told me that stem cells cured her 3-year-old daughter from autism that I realized that that was what I was here for. And so I started to investigate the legislation and the law to be able to really form a structure that gives me the legality to offer these services with the most safe and most efficient stem cells in the market,
Wow.
which took me a year and a half to get the framework done. It's called the Right to Try pathway, which basically gives patients access to products that are being under investigations with the FDA clinical trials. So we created a full legal structure to be able to acquire the cells on behalf of our patients to treat them without enrolling them into the clinical trial. But the cells as well as the protocols that we use mirrors exactly what the FDA is doing with the clinical trial for autism.
That's amazing. And is the right to try across America?
Yes,
Can
not
anyone?
federal.
Right. Nice. Okay, great. And so tell us a little bit of what you're seeing, because I mean the video that you sent over was unbelievable. But I would love for you to share some of the stories, perhaps.
Yeah, so BetterStem was created not just to be a provider of stem cells only. It was created to really to put the puzzle together. These kids, they live in a little, they live their lives with a low grade, constant inflammation in the brain. So you imagine you have a lot of inflammation in the brain that never goes away. It's not like a flu or a infection or that you got and then you got rid of. No, they always have this inflammation, and they also have a lot of inflammation in the gut. And as you know, if you have gut dysbiosis, the toxins, they basically have really the right connection with the brain through the gut-brain axis. And so I can treat the brain all day long, but if I don't treat the gut as well, then it becomes irrelevant. We were created not just to put the puzzle together and to look at the body in a 360-degree approach, where when the child comes to us, we start with a really solid baseline of testings to understand what else is happening that's causing that inflammation, so we can go down and shut down those pathways.
Wow.
But so we use mesenchymal stem cells, MSCs, that comes from a donor umbilical cord tissue. There is a really a process for a product to be able to be commercialized or be sold to us, where the product has to go through a variation of testings internally and third-party testing to validate that the stem cells are not just viable, but they are very safe, as well as they have no other problems like a DNA or chromosomal issues. They are tested for communicable diseases as well, sterilability, viability, and toxins, and everything else. So after that is when we're able to acquire this product, and we do this treatments intravenously. So the child or the patient comes in. We offer sedation as well, because most of these children cannot sit still for more than 5 minutes. So we can sedate the child for a little bit. We access the vein, and then we treat them intravenously. Then they go home and life is back to normal. We just wait and see the results.
And typically, what do you see as far as like the administration of the stem cells? How long afterwards do you start seeing that there's an effect?
I have seen as close as soon as 4 days after the procedure, but the majority of the parents see at 1 month mark. And that is because it takes time for the stem cells to release exosomes to communicate with other cells and really moderate the inflammation in the body. So as soon as the inflammation starts coming down is when you start seeing better behavior, better speech, better sleep. A lot of these kids, we pre-treat them with, we pre-treat their gut because we do this biosis testings. So we have a menu of treatments that we can offer pre-stem cells. So we maximize the results by optimizing the gut
That's
before you
amazing.
them. Yeah. And it's heartbreaking. I take most of the calls, initial calls with parents to understand exactly what caused the autism, because most of these kids were born completely normal. And in these parents, they tell me, yeah, at 18 month or 2 year old, they stop listening to this. They stop looking in my eyes. They stop letting me to touch them. They stop answering for their names.
Mm,
Oh my God.
it's
And
heart-wrenching.
it is. I have
Wow.
2 boys, so I cannot even imagine my child not even letting me to hold his hand.
Yeah.
So I take this as in a really, really personal level. I grew up with my cousin. He's severe autistic in the middle in a very small town in Brazil. And I know I grew up with people looking at us differently. Like even when we would walk into a grocery store and there was no resources, not even ABA therapy or speech or anything like in America, at least you have this type of resources. So I took this as a mission. This to me is not a company. This is a mission. I am on a mission to change how autism is being approached and to show that these treatments, yes, they don't work the same for every child. My job is to figure out why, but they work.
Yeah.
You know, you have done stem cells intravenously. I have done every other month I do it. They work to modulate inflammation. And if inflammation is the most cause of what we're seeing in the symptoms of autism, they will help somehow. So
Yeah.
our job is to optimize on how much they can help.
Well, the stem cells have secretomes and exosomes and all these,
Growth factor.
growth factors and things that which is something I want to make a comment about earlier was, just it's sad because these kids are so young and they're full of stem cells. And it's almost like their body is just not, is going through, like you stated, a process of chronic bioaccumulation of inflammation in the body that impacts, trans neurodegeneration and all of these other issues with the brain. And, we know that toxins are involved in this. We know that a lot of parents, they talk about how after the vaccine, the day after, they got vaccinated or something along those lines. And, there's a lot of people that don't wanna talk about some of these things, but it's what I've seen for years and years and years working with, so many patients with families that have children with Asperger's or autism or things of that nature. But we're just seeing in general more children being born with type 2 diabetes, with neurodevelopmental disorders. Like I struggled with ADHD and dyslexia. I was in special needs. I went to a naturopath, a chiropractor, and a functional medicine doctor who changed my diet, who they did a test on my microbiome. I had candida overgrowth. They had me on a strict diet to cut down sugar and to start consuming things that would help to rebuild the microbiome of my gut. I did, brain optimization training. And honestly, that's the whole reason why I'm here and why I'm so passionate about getting this message out and even interviewing you because this is the path forward. And so I during that process of probably around a 6-month process, I went from being in special needs and to take tests in particular to then getting straight A's in class. And I then realized like a lot of these kids that have neurodevelopmental disorders like I did, they're actually not broken at all. There's just interferences in their body that need to be removed and deficiencies. Like I also had a severe B12 deficiency, which I think everyone knows is a precursor to serotonin and dopamine and, you know, melatonin. And it just is important for so many different things in the body. Detoxification, your methylation pathways, removing heavy metals and biotoxins like mold and things of that nature, which I had a lot of as well. But it's going to a place like what you're doing and understanding this system, which is called BetterStem, right? It's called BetterStem. Yeah, and so tell us a little bit about why MCS is there an ability to experiment with other stem cells? Like what are your, are people just trying exosomes? Are people just trying secretomes? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, so the good thing about using MSCs, so they are considered adult stem cells, right? They're not embryonic, they don't have pluripotent characteristics, so they don't become other cells. What they do, they're really good identifying inflammation and then releasing exosomes to combat inflammation. So if you only uses exosomes, it's not as potent as using the stem cells that releases the exosomes. And remember, these stem cells, they multiply every hour they are multiplying. So you're actually getting a multi-factor effect of exosomes much more than what you're injecting if you're doing without having the stem cells or just doing exosomes. In my opinion, we should pair both. You should do intranasal or even like just breathing exosomes on top of stem cells.
Yeah.
That is next for us. We have to go, all of our protocols are approved. We have IRB for everything. So we have a board that's all the former FDA personnel that review every single protocol that we put it out there for the kids to ensure that they are not just safe, but we're measuring everything correctly.
That's great.
So we can,
Is Barbara part of that?
of course, she is.
She's a brilliant
She's
woman.
definitely my mentor. Yeah, if it wasn't for her, we would not be here. She's unbelievable, and she's so brilliant. Also, it's great to see scientists that are not staying in one topic only, because there are a lot of scientists that are really good at this, but they don't look to the right or to the left.
Yeah.
Same things with the traditional medicine. You go to these pediatricians and you talk about stem cells they sometimes never heard.
Yeah.
And it's just like you have to look outside of the box and continue to be, educating yourself with the newest technology, because that's the future. And
Yeah.
if you think about it, it truly makes sense. If you have inflammation in between the synapses, in between the brain cells, they cannot communicate. The communication does not passes through the right way. And these kids have a lot of inflammation, especially on the glial cell, which is the immune cell of the brain. And that really affects, when you put together with inflammation in the gut, affects behavior, speech, sleep, and the way even how the child functions and eats. Like,
Wow.
why are we already so picky? Is number one, their microbiome is completely incorrect or completely off. So we help them with personalized. We partnered with companies that personalize pre and probiotics based on the stool testings. So this parents receive everything at home. So they start almost like a month before the stem cell treatments after we get their gut results to optimize the gut in order to get the stem cells to go in and not look at the gut. Because if they go in, you cannot tell where to go, right? We want them to go up to the brain, but if the gut is too inflamed, they're gonna
That's
track
good.
them.
That's really actually brilliant because like in order to the stem cells are like heat-seeking missiles in a way, and certain exosomes, same thing. It's like you want the stem cells going to the place of inflammation. So I love what you're doing is that you're almost driving down inflammation in the gut and and I assume the rest of the body, which is going to happen inevitably if you're addressing the microbiome. And then when the stem cells are administered, they're focused on really going to the brain, which is great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
gotta
that's
clear the signal.
yeah, you're clearing the signal, exactly. So if people wanted to like refer to you or get some of the patients they're working with like plugged into this IRB, study, what would they do?
Yeah, so they will reach out to us. We'll have a consultation with them. The majority of our onboarding is virtually, and is meant to be this way to facilitate to the parents, the access to us. Because, I would say 80% of our kids, they're not local in Miami. And the plan for BetterStem is to be a national company in the next 12 to 24 months. So we will be opening clinics in every major city so parents don't have to fly too much to come to us. And so they will call, they're going to get a consultation with the patient care coordinator. From there, we collect the appropriate consents and the documentation and intake forms. And then they go through a virtual consultation with our doctor. And then we'll schedule them for the procedure.
Wow, that's
But
amazing.
before that, we do the testings and of course optimization if that's needed.
And when did you start?
We launched in the beginning of this year. We started really the company a while ago. It just took forever to get the legality right. Like,
Oh, that and my again, that's
yeah.
awesome that you did that. It does take a lot of money and time to do it
Oh
right.
my God, tell me about it. It's so frustrating that the system is so broken that
Yeah,
even if you wanted to do everything right, they still not doing it. They're not looking at the same lens that you are, but we got it done.
right.
I'm more than proud of me and the team that is able to do that. We're the only company, only private company in the United States providing access to stem cells treatments in the United States in a legal framework. Which
Wow.
for parents, this is huge because they can validate exactly how safe our cells are. We have entire chain of custody of the product from day one, from the mother who donated, the paperwork that was submitted to make sure that she was clean, the product was clean, the baby that was born, it was full term C-section, completely healthy, cannot be vaccinated. So there's so much checkbox that they have to meet in order to have a really cool and good product, and we got it done.
Wow,
Yes,
that is good, and maybe we just double click into that because I think a lot of people, they're getting MCSs just from whatever source, but you're talking about getting it from a pristine,
yes,
non-vaccinated source, which I think for a lot of autistic, like parents of autistic children and and um and children that have neurodevelopmental disorders, which I assume you help as well, right? Like even
yes,
outside of autism, that is a game changer because not many people even look into that.
yeah. And I will say also that is clinicians today, they don't really know where to start when it
Mm,
comes to sourcing stem cells. They are busy with treating patients. And because I'm a business person, I look at things differently because I'm not a clinician, right? I'm not treating patients. I look at this as, okay, what can I do to support the best the patients and the doctors that work for us. And number one is product. Number two is really like you have to have great expertise, but you can have great expertise all day long. But if the product is not the best, it's still not the best results. So you always have to have both. So I actually looked for about 8 months. I flew to 4 different manufacturers from Colorado to you name it. I went everywhere. I wanted to shake hands with the CEO and make sure that whoever I'm gonna be partnering with, they are legit and they're gonna say what they do. They're gonna do what they say they're gonna do, right? So we
yeah.
found the ideal partner and it's also important that to understand that these are not there's a lot of theory or myths that these cells that we're using are from the baby, so pro or not pro abortion. This has nothing to do with that. We're not using the cells from the baby. We only use the stem cells from the umbilical cord, which is after the baby was born. Even
Yes.
if it was like the baby was born at 30 weeks, we cannot even access those cells because they're not available.
I mean, people are getting stem cells from crazy sources right now. Like, and
My
and
God.
and and and, and I had a call with a company that's doing ectopic pregnancy stem cells, and they're like, these stem cells have more growth factor in them than any others. Uh, and it just to me is like, yeah, it just doesn't feel good or ethical from my perspective to be using stem cells from ectopic pregnancies. Yeah, this is really remarkable what you're doing, and you're expanding globally, um, or excuse me, across America is the vision. And if doctors wanted to like partner with you, is there a way to do that, or is it just that they refer to your practice?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are open to both approaches. At the end of the day, it's not who owns what. It's how can we impact the community, in a best way and a fast way to save some kids.
Yeah.
The youngest they are, the better it is because the brain is developing, still. But, you know, even the older kids at 20 years old or even older than that, they still have, they still see the benefits of reduction of inflammation. Therefore, they speak, they're more out there, they're more aware, they have a different way to their executive function, it starts getting better.
Mm,
A lot of questions that I always get asked is how many times do I have to do? And we don't know. It can be one time, can be three, can be more. It's
yeah.
depending on how the body is going to accept. But maintaining, like these kids have a lot of yeast overgrowth, a lot of bacteria and fungus in
Yeah.
their gut. And as you know, it's very hard to treat, you
It's
know?
hard. Yeah, it's tough. And it can come back over time, which is not fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. It's you need a comprehensive approach. And the analogy that I tell people for not just autistic children, but just for anyone in general, is everyone's been born with a different size genetic bucket. Like everyone has a different genetic susceptibility before the bucket overflows and symptoms start to form. So unfortunately, what's happening in society is because of the onslaught of environmental toxins, stressors, biotoxins, electromagnetic frequencies, chronic levels of inflammation, the diet that we're consuming that drives inflammation. People are being born, each generation is being born with a smaller and smaller genetic bucket. So, there could be two children that are twins that are born where one develops autism, another doesn't, and one's genetic bucket is bigger than the other genetic bucket. And we just know that they've been exposed to the same food, the same environment, but that genetically there's something different, right? And so what's interesting is that you have certain things that this is why when people are like, well, it's vaccines that cause autism, or it's sugar that causes autism, or it's this that causes autism, or that, it depends on the person, and it depends on how much exposure they've had,
Mhm.
and what how much the bucket has essentially filled up to, and whatever tips that over. It could be a car accident, it could be an emotional trauma, it could be too much sugar that drives yeast overgrowth, that drives inflammation, that causes the bucket to overflow, and autism starts to take shape. So it's different for each person. But what we do know is that, like you're saying, is that inflammation is the driver to neurodevelopmental issues, and we have to address the reduction and removal of inflammation, which what you're doing is a huge part of
Yeah.
that. And then the goal I would have for the doctors out there listening is that you would also address, you know, the other elements that Gracie's brought up, which is, the microbiome and optimizing gut health, closing those gap junctions,
Diet.
and
Yes.
the diet and removing of the environmental toxins and biotoxins,
Yeah.
overcoming deficiencies of micronutrients, etc.
We talked about this, I think, in the when we saw each other last time, that there was this study done with identical triplets, and they looked. One of them was born autistic, the other two were not. And I'm not sure if he was born autistic, but he developed autism. And they looked at the microbiome of the mom and the dad and the three kids. And the kid that developed autism, it had the bad part of the mother's microbiome and the bad part of the dad's microbiome
Mm,
back into same DNA, but it's not the same microbiome. So what does that mean? You're detoxing differently, you're absorbing things differently.
yes.
You're growing bacteria, or when you're exposed to something, you cannot clear the same way as the other ones. So everybody, we have to be unique at certain way, right? And that uniqueness is sometimes what makes us thrive or not.
Wow. That's brilliant. Yeah, and the epigenome is so important
Yeah.
for the expression of the genes. It's really amazing that post the Human Genome Project that they realized, like, gosh, the environment in and around the cells actually dictate the expression of the genes. So that's really it's a really powerful study. that triplet study. So if a doctor listening wants to integrate this into their existing practice, is that a possibility, or are you franchising and just having these as standalone opportunities?
We are open to discussion. This is the perfect time to start talking about this because we're right in the beginning. This is where we created this strategy. And, at the end of the day, again, it's not about us or them. It's about community. It's about, holding hands and joining forces so we can really create a movement that moves the needle and creates access to these families for services that no, they are not there accessible. Flying to Mexico, Panama for these families are it's a journey, especially, if you had to take a child that has issues with behavior and, censoring, putting them in an airplane and traveling, it's very challenging. So
Yes.
accessibility is very important.
Yeah, especially for this group of individuals. Look, I'm building a longevity center in Mexico, and we'll be having some really powerful treatments there, but especially for families that have autism, like children with autism, or a child with autism, it's difficult to travel, and it's I think what you're doing is beautiful. I brought me to a nonprofit event that she hosted, and it was it was so beautiful just to see her heart for the women of the world that have been abused in different ways and that
We're
need.
doing one tonight here in Miami.
Really? That's awesome. Well, I pray that it just goes really well for you. But what's really cool is that your heart in respect to the way that you want to give back to the world through nonprofits is similar to the way that you build business, in that you're like, where are there problems and how can we address these problems and create something that's a real solution for these families? And I think you're building this at the perfect time in history, because just the statistics around autism probably better than I do right now. But what are some of the statistics around how many kids are now dealing with this?
Yes, CDC is 1 in 31, but there's some states like California, even Florida is really bad, is 1 in 21. Yeah, it's a 4-to-1 when it comes to boys versus girls. The earliest diagnostics that they can have is around 2 years old or 18 months. That's when you can really, but you can notice before that. And I think science and technology is playing a really big piece here to give access to early diagnostics because we need that in order to get the interventions early on. But yeah, it's 3% of the world population. Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
And
I
if
mean,
you can think about it, that some of this is environmental driven, is vaccine driven, is whatever we expose the children to. This is it's just it's heartbreaking. I have 2 boys. If I have it's heartbreaking to hear this family saying after I gave him the MMR, stop talking, or he had a big fever, we had to take to the doctor. Yes, it's not the vaccines alone. The vaccine is a contribution if you already have the predisposition, right? It's not one or the other. It's the same thing. Why is a spectrum? It's because it's not only one thing that causes, it's a variation of many things together that activates that gene or activates that autism part of the behavior in the form.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So amazing. Well, look, we've got talked about clinical, you know, solutions for a big problem that you're solving, not just haphazardly, but through some of the scientists that have worked with the FDA very closely and that are working with you now and are setting this up through IRB studies to be done at the highest degree of scrutiny and the highest degree of excellence. And so I'm really excited for you. Before we jump off, though, because we do have doctors and health professionals and health entrepreneurs that are listening to this podcast, you you were Entrepreneur of the Year, Ernst Young's Entrepreneur of the Year. I would love for you just to share some tips and tricks on what does it take to be a great entrepreneur in the health space, and what are some of the secrets that have allowed for you to be as successful as you are?
Well, where you want to start?
I think maybe we start with your leadership because, something you shared at dinner when we were in Miami that really touched me was when there was a conversation that was being had where this company wanted to come in and buy your company. They said, don't tell the employees, don't tell your team members what's happening. And you did the opposite. You said, hey, I believe in transparency. I believe in sharing. Hey, this is going to be better for everyone, going to grow, and we're going to all benefit at a higher level because of this. So you literally took their advice and did the opposite, which actually created an even tighter culture and community within your organization that I thought was like, wow, that's if you want to talk about building culture and
Yeah.
building trust, right? That's the kind of transparency you want to have. But maybe we talk a little bit about your leadership style and some of the things that have really created stickiness in your businesses.
So I was blessed to come from a very small town in Brazil, which gave me a lot of sense of community and family and build the way I am and how I lead as well. And this is actually a funny story because when I started ACP, which is a home health care company, so when I sold, there were 1,200 employees. The majority of them, of course, they were nurses. And you don't get to see these nurses every day because they go into the patient's homes. So how do you create culture if you don't
Wow.
touch your employees? You cannot be in front of them. So I always said that if you wanted to come to us, we're a family. And one of the employees raised their hands and I said, well, I hate my family. And I was like, oh my gosh, God, please help me. How do I answer that? And I said, "Well, I know it may not be ideal, not every family is perfect, but the idea of the role of being a family is to be there for each other, is to count on each other, is to be truthful to each other, is to be transparent with each other. So with that, it creates engagement and loyalty. People don't leave companies, they leave leaders, they leave managers. It all comes down to they feel appreciated. How do you make that? So one of the things that we had that was very strong when it comes to the culture, since we were not able to see these nurses all the time, is do I understand their love language? Do I understand if I have to ask them for a favor to go into the shift at 12 o'clock at night, what do I need to do for her to feel that I love her or that I appreciate? Is that money? Is that time? Is that words of affirmation? Is that recognition? There's always like a psychological part that you have to play to understand people better. And when it comes to be transparent with my employees, when I decided to put the company through the due diligence process to partner with the private equity, you always have to come down to two things: what is driving that decision, and what would you wanted them to do for you if they were in that position.
Mm,
So I always want as an employee to be told to be transparent so I know what's going on. And two, my driver to sell the company was not just to take money off the table and retire. It was to create opportunity for them that it would take me longer to do it by myself.
wow.
And when you partner with a private equity, you have to be extremely careful because regardless what they tell you, they are motivated by the bottom line. Healthcare is the opposite. You care for, you put the patients first, you do the right thing, and your bottom line is the result. So they don't understand that. So understanding how to partner, how to select your future partner, and put really good guardrails around. One of the things we did that was probably the best lessons learned I had with private equity is as soon as we close a transaction for the first time, we brought everybody together, my management team and the private equity team together in the same room. And now we're going to create the strategy together for
Wow.
the next 3 years because you're going to be accountable as much as I am going to be accountable. So we put basically who does what and when in a 3-year strategy. So the private
Wow.
equity is also aligned to what we said we can do. not what they said we must do.
That's so brilliant.
And that creates a partnership in a different dimension. You can now look at the papers. Oh, you said you could do this by mid 2026. Where are we? Do you need an
So
addition?
was that, I assume that was your idea, not the private equity's idea.
Of course not. No.
Right, like, that is brilliant though, but it creates like this it creates this alignment and like the culture that typically private equity cultivates in companies that they buy oftentimes turns sour and, it can be
95% of the time. Yeah.
95. I didn't know that stat. But yeah, I mean, like one of the companies that got acquired through our network, Health Experts Alliance, for 100 million at a $327 million valuation. They came in and they were like a health culture. They did planks every lunch hour together as a team. They did they got paleo donuts that were deep fried in like coconut oil with like almond flour and all this like crazy healthy stuff. And so the private equity company came in and they took out the donuts. They took out the planks and they were like, this is costing too much. The planks are wasting people's time. Like they have no idea that like doing planks actually helps them become more productive and efficient, right? Like so people are just leaving. Like they ended up coming working with me. They left to work with other companies. And I was like, wow, like what an opportunity you had where a company was growing like crazy. And then literally the growth of the company just went to a standstill and it was like them just hiring new people, replacing people that left. So it is really interesting, but the way that you structured that was brilliant. Is there any other tips around leadership around your team and getting them like one question I would have for you is if you have 1,200 team members that are all, that you don't see, how do you motivate them to do a great job to engage in a company that has a healthy culture? How do you build a healthy culture?
So we always knew we had 2 touches per year that we were going to touch them. And normally those are skills checks or continued trainings that they come to the office or we go to them. But most importantly, they have to have the first orientation. So I was present in probably 90% of the orientations to every single one that comes on board. I would take 5 minutes of my time, introduce myself, and tell them, I am here for you. This is my email because I want them to know who is leading them.
Mm,
It's important for them to know who the mother is, right? Because the employee that is loyal, they need to know that there is a straight line between you and them
yeah.
because that's getting your back. And the promise we had is we will always get your back. We will fire the client for you if they're breaking the boundaries that we set, that we our core values. And that has remember we talked about this. You hire for attitude, you train for skills, and you fire for example, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You have to protect your people. And when they see that level of commitment that you're giving to them, they always give it back to you. And also I have the inversion of trust when it comes to I don't ask them to earn my trust. I give them trust from the first day on. Your job is to keep the trust I gave you
Mm,
versus you have to work hard to make me to trust you. Well, you have done nothing wrong for me to not trust you to begin with. I just start working with you.
yeah,
So I needed to give you a 10. Your job is to keep the 10. And if you fall to a 9, your job is to get back to the 10.
yeah.
Now I put the responsibility on them to keep it versus them to have to prove it to me, which
Wow.
it inverts the pyramid and the employee sees you as a partner, not as a boss.
Wow.
And that level of giving and taking is important when you're starting a relationship.
Mm,
Another thing is like, your org chart, make that a circle.
mm,
Put the patient in the middle. which is your client. Everything else is to serve the patient.
Wow.
It's not the CEO on the top and the nurse on the bottom. It doesn't work like that. It's a community,
Wow.
right? But so little things like this, if you lead from that perspective, it changes the culture, even though you're not touching them every day.
Wow. This is really brilliant. And my mentor and my partner right now, Horst Schulze, in the longevity resort business, who built the Ritz Carlton, it's so interesting. He would focus on culture so much, and he would do all the orientations. And he said when Marriott bought Ritz Carlton from him, what happened was Marriott stopped having leadership and the CEO and the COO do orientations in the different properties that were opening. So they would just send a team. And so there was this disconnect from, the team and the leadership. And he's like, this was one of my favorite things that I used to do was orient them and connect with them and let them know I'm here for them. And, he'd start his presentation, he'd walk up on stage and he'd say, "I'm really, really important. Like, I am extremely important." And he's like, "And you are just as important as me." Right? So it was kind of like this, people would feel like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, he is important. Oh my gosh, now I'm important." He's like, "I want people to know that the dishwasher, if they don't show up to wash dishes, that we don't have Ritz-Carlton."
Yeah.
Right? So it was it's very aligned. I love it. And Greice Murphy, you're brilliant as an entrepreneur, as a mother, as a leader, and as a healer. You're really like leaning into this art of really helping these families and these children, and hopefully together, and through whatever God has in store for us, that we can make the world a better place, and really create a movement that leaves a legacy on this world, so that the 3% goes back to 2%, goes back to 1%,
Amen.
and
Amen.
all the way back.
Amen. Yeah. Every time I get a video or I cry every time I do that because that parent, I'm gonna cry here. That parents is like they've been trying to teach the child to ride a bicycle for 2.5 years. And in 4 weeks after the stem cells, the child was riding the bicycle by itself,
Yeah,
brushing his teeth by himself.
yeah.
And it's just like if God put me here is to do something better and bigger than myself. And this is bigger than myself. And it will be bigger than anything that I have built. And I cannot wait for the impact that we're going to do in these families, because at the end of the day, this is what we leave behind. It's not the money you make, it's not how many laughs you have, it's who you remember for.
Yes.
It's just like, this is what I know is my call, and I'm not going to stop until I get there because I know it's needed.
Wow. Gracie, where can they follow you? Where can they go to the website to learn more?
Yeah, they can go to betterstem.com. My email is gmurphy@betterstem.com. If they want to refer patients or me to talk to families, they can always reach me by email or even by the website. We're here for them. We take every single time to educate these families because I know it's
Hey,
confusing.
brilliant in both the clinical and business. Appreciate you, and
Thank you,
thank
my
you again so
friends.
much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Honor.
Thanks for listening to the Longevity Leaders Podcast. Our Longevity Leaders community is on mission to transform 100 million lives by 2040. If you enjoyed this show, please share this with somebody that you know, especially another doctor or physician, but also click that follow button. Until next time, stay strong and live long.